So in today's video, we're going to talk about a neighborhood that is extremely affordable, but also in an area that's super central and has awesome floor plans. And for the price, it's some of the best value I've found in Virginia Beach, period. It's called Indian Lakes. Now, when I look for value in neighborhoods in Virginia Beach, I'm not trying to find necessarily the cheapest house in the area, but I want to find the best bang for buck that you can find for any price. My job, I feel like, is to help you determine those spots. Where is that spot that gives you that little extra oomph, that little extra value that you can't find as well in other parts of the city or even in Hampton Roads in general. So today we're going to talk about Indian Lakes, which is a neighborhood that I have thrown in a lot of conversations because I think that it gets undervalued, underseen, and it provides a lot for the money. I'm going to talk to you about the value that you do get. I'm also going to talk to you about some drawbacks of this neighborhood because, again, the reason why it's priced where it is, it has some drawbacks. I'll talk to you about those and why I might say to you some caution if you do want to buy an Indian Lakes because it might not be all of what you're expecting. We'll talk about all those things. So first, when you look on the map, I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to show you where Virginia Beach is in Hampton Roads. So Virginia Beach right here, if you zoom in on the south central part of Virginia Beach, down closer to the Kempsville area. Here's Kempsville right here. Zooming in here, this is Indian Lakes right here. So this neighborhood here, these couple of these townhouses here, going across these lakes, over on this side as well, this is all what's considered Indian Lakes. Now, one of the reasons why I like this neighborhood is because it is very central. So if you notice, it's connected to a main road called Farrell Parkway. That road connects over to Indian River Road, which goes right to Interstate 64. And it also goes over towards Princess Anne Road, which takes you all the way towards the farther east sides of Virginia Beach. So being near Farrell Parkway is extremely helpful, but you're also close to places like Kempsville Road, which go north and south, Providence Road, Indian Lakes Boulevard. There are a lot of main roads that you can take to get out of the neighborhood to get to other parts of the city. One of the things I like a lot in general is the ability to breathe in a neighborhood. Can I get out in different ways? Do I have to go out one way? Same with houses. I like the ability to go to different parts and not having to be forced into one direction. That's one of the things that Indian Lakes allows for is the flexibility to drive to different parts of the city and leave the neighborhood in different ways, as illustrated by all the roads that come out of Indian Lakes. Now, if you see also, because of where it is on the map, it's extremely accessible to shopping. So you zoom out of here, there's a Harris Teeter right down the street off of Farrell Parkway, and also Food Lion. There are two that bookend on both sides of an area in Farrell Parkway between two main roads, Indian River Road and Indian Lakes Boulevard. And Indian Lakes is right next to that. Going further, though, you've got Kroger, which is nearby. You're about 10 minutes away from town center. You're also only about 22, 23 minutes away from downtown Norfolk. But if you're on or near Indian River Road, that road takes you to all parts of the area, and it's extremely busy. It has lots of things on it. In addition to that, Kempsville Road has access to shopping, as well as Providence Road has access to shopping. Lots of good restaurants as well. This is part of the area close by that I grew up in. I spent a lot of time up and down Indian River Road, a lot of time. And this road used to back up all the time. They put in a new traffic light system, which is one of the drawbacks to this area, or kind of positive and negative depending on what your preferences are. You're also close to Regent University, which is a pretty prominent local college. So if you do want to rent your house out in Indian Lakes, a lot of people that go to the college may be more interested in being in Indian Lakes because it's so close. So while you're not necessarily super close to an interstate per se, you're not right on one, you're not too far away from an interstate, a major roadway, and also rural parts of town too. So it's a very nice, convenient, central spot. You don't feel like you're in the middle of a super hustle and bustle area, but you're also not in the middle of nowhere either, which is why I like this balance of those two things. Now the houses themselves, okay, so Indian Lakes, the north part and the south part were built in different time periods. So zooming back in, Indian Lakes on the north side was built mostly in the 1974 to 1979-ish time period. And you got a lot more single-family houses in this side. And these are going to be mostly in the anywhere from 1,300, 1,400 square feet up to 2,200 to 2,500 square feet. Now, you'll find some extremes on both sides, but for the most part, that's what you'll find. Now, the prices in here are going to be mostly anywhere from like the 330, 340 range up into the 450 range. And it's very hard to find anything over 450, which is why I find them very, very affordable for what you get. Now, another thing here is that as you get newer houses, especially here, it's very hard to find new construction construction ranch or one-story houses. One of the reasons why I like Indian Lakes is because there are a lot of one-story houses in here. There's a nice balance of two-story and one-story, which means with ranches, you get a little bit larger lot width, lot size oftentimes. So while there are some in here that are like, quarter of an acre, 2/10 of an acre, you'll find some that are just a little bit bigger, a third of an acre sometimes, that makes it feel a little bit larger, a little bit more of a space between you and your neighbors, so that even though you're not paying an exorbitant amount of money, you're still getting a lot of value for what you're paying. Now, another thing to note is that there are some roads that connect through the neighborhoods in Indian Lakes, and so those are a little bit busier, but they often have a lot of cul-de-sacs that come off of those roads. So as you zoom in, you see what I'm talking about. Aquarius Court, Richwood Court, Christian Court, Elton Court, like all these courts are all like, they're pretty quiet, because unless you live there, you have no reason to go there unless you just get lost. Every once in a while, you'll find even these cul-de-sacs that don't back up to a house, you'll find the lots might be even bigger. Those backyards are pretty big, so you can find some good space in some of these houses. Cheap space, love that. What I like though about some of these floor plans is that they are very functional, and especially the ranches. As you walk into some of these ranches, you'll have like a living room as you walk in, and then behind there, there's another room that often people will open up between those two rooms, but that one often has a fireplace that flows into a kitchen to the right or to the left based on which side it is, and then the bedrooms are all in one wing, so you kind of have some separation there, and a very nice floor plan for like 1,800, 1,900, 2,000, 2,200 square feet. But all in all, for the price under $450 and just over even $350, you can get a real nice house for the price, great location, easy access to different parts of town, and also some in-demand school districts, and also an HOA with a pool for around $30 a month. So to me, this area checks all the boxes that are, the essentials, get your basics, and then add some extra value on top of that, and not have to pay too much for it. I'm a huge fan of Indian Lakes. So while you're near a lot of kind of major or busy roadways, near the neighborhood, you're in spots that don't feel busy at all. Of course, Indian Lakes is named because you got multiple lakes, Indian Lakes as well. So you have some houses that are on these lakes and some that aren't, and you'll see some price difference based on being on or off of these lakes too. Now, another thing cool thing in Indian Lakes, and if you go to the satellite view, see these lines here. There are trails that go through the neighborhood. Again, the little details, right? If you have an HOA neighborhood, you don't always assume that these types of neighborhoods have places like trails and access to different parts of the neighborhood, but this neighborhood does. And so you get the trails. You also get a playground. You also get the pool access, which is very close across from Indian Lakes Boulevard at the Indian Lakes Foundation, which is right there too. So there's the pool. You can rent a space in there too. And it also has sidewalks that connect to the foundation from all parts of the neighborhood. That in and of itself is an extra little value. And the association is only about $32 a month, which again, you're getting a pool, getting a playground, getting the common areas, you're getting those sidewalks. You're not getting a ton of things, but you're not also paying for a lot of things that you wouldn't use either. So I think for a balance of cost, low cost HOA, you're going to get some nice stuff. For example, that pool, which if you do go to the rec center, that's cheap too. So unless you go to the rec center and the Virginia Beach rec centers to get a pool access there, you don't pay to put a pool in. Nowadays it's like $50,000 to $100,000 in a lot of cases. So $30+ a month to have pool access and a playground, that in and of itself is a good value. Now, the south part of Indian Lakes is actually served by a different association. There's Indian Lakes Foundation, which is on the north part. Right here, you see Indian Lakes Foundation. Then there's also Indian Lakes Association, which is right off of Halifax Drive, which also has its own pool there as well. And you can go on the Indian Lakes Association website, you can see which streets are served by that association as opposed to the foundation further north. The prices for both are pretty similar though. Now, as we got into the 80s, if you cross over Farrell Parkway, this is also Indian Lakes as well. So this is a little bit different. These are a little bit smaller, but they're built in the early 80s, going into the late 80s, a little bit smaller. And so you'll find some there, you could find them even under 300, like 900 square feet, that kind of thing. But most of them are going to be 310, 315 to like 360, 370, a little bit higher than that in the larger house situations. But the lots are going to be kind of small. But again, that's part of the drawback to getting a cheaper house too. As you go next to these Indian Lakes single family neighborhoods, you'll find on both sides Indian Lakes townhouses and also condos. You'll find some condos as well. Multiple condo neighborhoods that have their own associations next to the Indian Lakes neighborhood itself. But also the Indian Lakes townhouses are some of my favorite attached houses in Virginia Beach. The reason is because, again, you got the HOA, but it's a small cost. But the house, the styles, they look nice, right? They look a brick face. Not all of them have the the same. So you got brick, you got vinyl, but it has a little bit nicer look to it. The prices for the townhouses are going to be anywhere from like the 225 to 280 up into the 325, even 350 in some of those larger end units. But I think for the price and the ability to rent them, it's a good investment property if you do want to just buy a house, like a 2-3 bedroom house in a place like Indian Lakes, the townhouses, and then keep it for duration for as long as you want and get some good rental property out of it too. Overall, this general area has lots of shopping center vibes, like the 70s and 80s shopping center vibes. And so back when these houses were built in Indian Lakes, this was all new. My parents, when we moved here in the early 80s, Indian River Road was a 2-lane road. And as you went past the McDonald's, there's a McDonald's, there and then the Acredale Saddle Shop, which is right over here, there wasn't much anything past this part of Indian River Road. It was country. Indian Lakes was here on this side, but even going into the early 80s, they were just building Indian Lakes over on this side. This was all farmland going further away. Now, one shopping center I want to mention specifically is you're close to Kemps River Shopping Center. Now, Kemps River Shopping Center, it's often debated as to if it's nice or not. The big anchor stores have either left or have been redone. And there's an international grocery store in one of the large anchor stores now. And the other anchor store, what used to be an old Kmart and now is Planet Fitness. So it doesn't feel that great, but there are some good restaurants in the shopping center that are worth talking about. One is going to be Park Lane Tavern, which is right outside of the shopping center, right on the corner of Kempsville Road. Really, really good fish and chips. I think my favorite fish and chips in the area. Shaking Crab, good seafood place. But next to that is also a sneaky one, Tasty Korean Barbecue, which is a favorite of a lot of locals close to Kemps River. Across from there is also Gen Thai. I think that's my favorite Thai place. It's right next to the Dollar Tree. It's over in the Dollar Tree side over near the UPS store right here. There's Gen Thai right there. You got Outback, but chains, I don't care about chains. So this area was new enough back then to not need a facelift because it just kept growing. But now that we're 40, 45 plus years removed from this area on Indian River Road being, built and new, it's getting time to where it might need some updating. It feels more tired, but it's still very active and there are a lot of things happening nearby here. So I wouldn't throw it all out because it might not feel as brand new as you might want or expect in different parts of Virginia Beach. Now on the north side and the south side of Indian Lakes, the newer side, those school districts are Salem High, Salem Middle School, and then either Indian Lakes or Providence Elementary School. But on the north side, you've got Salem and then also Indian Lakes Elementary School, but Brandon Middle School. So there's a little bit of a difference as you go from one side to the other. Then, of course, do your research as far as which school districts you want and are comfortable with, but you'll find there's some demand in some of these school districts. So what are the drawbacks to living in Indian Lakes? Well, number one is going to be that the houses themselves are kind of close together. I mentioned that, you get some houses that are just wide enough to where it feels a little bit bigger, like the lots feel a little bit bigger. That's true, but it's not exorbitant, right? And a lot of these are going to be a little bit on the smaller side. So as you drive through the neighborhood, it might feel crowded because the streets are a little bit more narrow because not as much parking access off the street. But that's one drawback. Another one's going to be that as you go into the 80s, early to mid 80s, you'll find that polybutylene piping becomes more of a thing. And I mentioned polybutylene piping a lot, but this is the time period where it's something to consider because I mentioned in polybutylene piping, it's known to rupture. And as time went on, it kept changing the design of this pipe. And as you went into the early 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, into the 90s, it went through different phases. As time went by, the phases became stronger. But in the early 80s, mid 80s, you'll find that a lot of these pipes could have ruptured in the past, or they might still. So just do your research. If you look for a house in Indian Lakes in the south part, or in the 80s especially, just check to see if your inspector can help you determine if there's polybutylene piping in the house. It's not the end of the world necessarily, but it's something definitely to keep in mind. Another drawback is going to be that these houses, because of when they were built, in my opinion, they can feel a little, dingy is the wrong word, just kind of blah. I mean, as you walk in, the house, the drywall has a little bit of an older, kind of a cheap feeling. It's not like those 50s houses with plaster. It doesn't feel the same to me. So that can be like, it just feels a certain way. The finishes, if they haven't been updated, they can just feel old. So it's just a time period that, houses with those fixtures put in them, they feel old fast. If you take care of these houses, they're great. They feel great. But sometimes if you don't, they just feel, they feel like they just get older or seem to get older faster. Another thing is that the closest grocery stores, now they got a Food Lion and Harris Teeter on one side, over on this side. But there's also one, if you go down further south, there's a Food Lion on the other side of Lynn Haven Parkway. This side, this strip mall area, this part of town, this little very minute corner, I think just feels older and kind of run down to me. I definitely like the shopping centers over near Farrell Parkway and even Kemps River Crossing better than over on this side, over closer to this Food Lion in Pleasant Valley over here. So, your convenience to all the shopping, you might not find that all the places you want to go to that are closest will feel as great as you might want. So if you have any questions about relocating to Indian Lakes or Virginia Beach or anywhere through Virginia Beach through Williamsburg, let me know. It's what I do. I love helping people relocate to the area. So if you have questions, I have my contact information in the description. You can email me, call me, text me, and I'll do whatever I can to help you relocate to the area. And I will see you on the next video.